We're here with a live audience in Brooklyn, New York to celebrate our 200th episode. Join us next. So welcome to the 200th episode of Talking Cars.
We made it.
Yes, we did it. So for those of you who are listening and can't see us, we are coming through to you from a cool venue in Brooklyn, New York today with a live studio audience. And we cannot thank you all enough for being here. We know you've come from near and far to see us, and I think I speak for all of us when I say the Talking Cars is one of our favorite parts of the job, and not just because we get to do it, but the engagement with you guys, meeting you, the questions and videos that everybody sends. Whether you agree with us or not, we really enjoy them. Keep them coming. Whether we agree with one another or not, we enjoy them, so keep them coming. Believe it or not, Talking Cars aired for the first time in March of 2013. We have been doing this for 6 years, and it certainly doesn't seem that to me. I don't know about you guys. Just some quick downloads of Talking Cars, 2,800,000 downloads. And YouTube views, 7,400,000 YouTube views. That's 10 million people like yourselves who have been watching us say what we need to say and the testing results and everything. So we can't appreciate it any more than being with you here and doing this today. Jake Fisher, our director of autos testing, who heads up really all of the autos testing, you and Gabe were actually on the very first episode of Talking Cars, and we're just curious if you want to share how it's different from that very first episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, for anyone to actually see the first episode here, you go,
show of hands. There you go.
Clap if you actually saw the first episode. Well, I want to clap for you for actually sticking with us after that, because it was an absolute train wreck. And thanks for everyone allowing us to do another one after that one. But I mean, to be honest with you, where it started was, anyone listen to the show? Ever listen to the show Car Talk?
Yes.
Let's hear some clapping for those guys. And I mean, Car Talk. I mean, we all love that show. It was a great show. Two brothers in Boston talking about listening to people and talking about how to repair their cars. Terrific. We're not nearly as funny as those guys. But so the idea really came to, well, we're not about car repair. We're about, everyone comes to us. We're like, like the doctors at the party, right? Everyone's like, it's like, hey, my arm hurts here. What's wrong with it? It's like, I am looking for buying a car. We do this. This is what we do when we're not here. We tell people what cars to buy because we've driven them all. And this was the idea. It was a call-in show. And people would be like, hey, should I buy this or that? And we'd be able to talk to them. And that was actually what the first show was. It was actually live call-in. We've grown since then. It's gotten a little bit better. But I mean, essentially, why we're doing this show, it's really listening to you guys. It's engaging, it's understanding, it honestly helps us a lot. I mean, we've created so much content, I think. I mean, we've done if you look at some of the articles that we're putting out, it's like, should I buy a RAV4 or a CRV? That all comes from the audience of Talking Cars. So, it's been a heck of a journey. It's been a lot of fun. Really been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the history of the show. But we thought too we'd give you a little insight into the history of ourselves and how we got to CR. So Gabe Shenhar, who heads all of our dynamic testing and is also the person that decides all the cars we buy, he was also on that train wreck first episode of Talking Cars, but he's also been with CR the longest. And you have kind of a neat story, Gabe, that I thought you might want to share of how you got to CR.
Yeah, I was the U.S. correspondent of an Israeli car magazine, so I started in that capacity to attend all kinds of press functions and whatnot. And one of the people there said, "Hey, you know what? With your background of engineering and auto journalism, you should contact Bob Knoll, at the time the director of Auto Test." And so I did, and that's how I met your mother, or that's how I got the best job in the world.
Well, I mean, your history's really. I mean, look. I mean, I've done like the car racing and stuff like that. But weren't you driving ambulances in Israel? I mean, that's a whole nother level.
At first, I was going to be a doctor, and so during my work as an ambulance driver, I discovered, I actually like the car part A lot better, and the
Getting
driving,
into the hospital?
and the driving, and getting and setting records in time to get places. So
You just pass by the hospital and just keep on going, like, oh, it's a nice corner here.
no, the dispatcher's always sort of looking at the time. How'd you get there so fast?
So Gabe's come from very far away. Now Ryan, who's obviously our tire expert, he does 99% of the tire driving as well as some dynamic handling for the cars testing. Ryan's been here not the least amount of time, but he's the youngest of the group. Your story's very different, more local.
Yeah, it's much different. I did not know you drove ambulance. That's awesome.
A few other things you don't know.
We'll leave it at that. I actually grew up in East Haddam, where the test track is, and it was always this mysterious, like, magical place. You know, there was this fence, and you could never see what was going on back there.
Top secret.
Top secret. And actually, in high school, I got to go there on a job shadow, and obviously fell in love with it. I was always a gearhead. My father was a mechanic his whole life, and so I graduate high school. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, and I start going to a community college for engineering. And a good friend of mine, his father works at the track, Gene Peterson, who is my immediate boss now. He's in charge of tire testing. He asked me if I want to change tires for a little while. Limited duration. I was only supposed to be there for like 6 months.
Limited duration.
Yeah, literally. It was at the time. It was called limited duration. At the time, I was actually working part time. I was a mechanic cleaning drill rigs, and I was like, sign me up immediately. So I started doing that while I was going to school, and been learning from these guys ever since. 13 years now.
13. And we call Ryan, he's part of what we used to call the young, and then we go, he's not that young anymore at 13 years. Yeah.
I was 18 when I started, yeah.
Yeah. And Mike, you are the newest of the group, Monticello, but not the youngest of the group. But tell yours,
I like
yours and Mike's, Quincy, the two Mikes down the end.
You want him to go first?
No, I want you to go first. But a little different in that you come from the journalism side, not the engineering side.
We both come from the journalism side. And my story is, it took a little longer to get into the industry and for sure to CR than I would have liked. But mine's sort of a story about having a dream job, but initially not believing in myself that I could do that dream job, and then eventually saying, I'm going to do this. So I grew up loving cars from the first time I can remember. And my dad always worked on our cars, and he had a motorcycle. And I spent all my study periods from 5th grade through high school in the library reading car magazines, not studying, and thought, how do you get that job? And I wish I could have that job. And then when I went to college, I didn't believe that I could do that job. I didn't think I was a good enough writer to do that. So I went to college, got a liberal arts degree, and because I had this liberal arts degree, I could take a lot of electives. And my senior year, I took 2 journalism courses, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are actually kind of fun, reporting. And I'm like, this is what I should have majored in. But of course, it was my senior year, and it was too late. So I'd spent a few years doing other things because I didn't want to go right back to school, and then I eventually said, you know what, I don't care, I'm going for it. I'm going to go back to school, get my master's in journalism, and if it works out, great. If I just end up being a newspaper journalist for the rest of my life, that's okay. Nothing wrong with newspaper journalism, but I got lucky. I had to do some internships during this program, ended up at a car magazine in California, and then got...
You can say the name of the magazine.
And then Road and Track, and then ended up lucky that someone was leaving, and I ended up getting hired full-time there. And I was out there for 16 years, and I eventually wanted to get back to my homeland here on the East Coast, and I got lucky that there was a job opening and got hired, and it's been awesome working with these guys ever since. It's been a dream job.
Right. And Mike Quincy, too, on the journalism side, but he's our bridge, really, from the technical stuff that we're doing on the engineering side to what ends up on the website in words that you guys can actually understand. That's what we rely on the 2 mics for, but your story's a little different as well.
Yeah, I was very, very similar to Mike Monticello. I was the car guy in the family, and it didn't seem to me there would be any better job in the world than studying the auto industry and writing about it. And I got my big break in 1989. I was hired by David E. Davis from Automobile Magazine, and people that read car magazines for the past 30 years probably know that name. And but I was out in Michigan. I really wanted to be back on the East Coast, just like Mike, and had an opportunity to join Consumer Reports in Yonkers, the home office, where they kind of put me in charge of doing the automotive buying guides, and then that morphed into writing for the magazine, and eventually I got a chance to come up to the test track, and it really is. It's the best place to work.
Right, it really is.
I mean, we've all had this kind of like different routes here, but I mean, I think what really blew me away when I started working here, I mean, I've been here now 20 years, and I came from industry, an engineer, I was going to do all that stuff. But back then, I don't think it was really clear, like, who were the people who worked at Consumer Reports? Who were these people testing these cars? Were they car enthusiasts at all, or did they come right away from, we finish up the appliances and then we go look at the Hondas? And
That was a common perception.
that was a common perception, and it was my perception. So I was working in the industry, I was in Detroit.
Mine too.
And I was almost like, I don't even know if I want to interview there. I came out, and everyone right down, all car enthusiasts, and yeah, it was really eye-opening. And I think this show helps kind of expose that and like who we are. I know nothing about appliances.
We built up this reputation for having credibility. We back everything by data. We buy our own test products, all that stuff. And my always thought about working for the autos team was we just need to put in some personality, some colors, some faces. And I think this has been a good platform for them.
We always had the personality, which now we can let people know.
Just echoing off of that, it was an eye-opener for me too when I came to interview and I stayed there for 4 hours and drove on the track. But anyway, we always had these kind of conversations, like cooler conversations. How do we make the virtual idea of bringing people inside these walls and getting to
behind the scenes,
interact with us? Because that, just like Jake said, it's a whole different. When you pick up the magazine and you leaf through the pages, you just don't get that idea.
This is not work for us. This is what we do at lunch. All we're doing is inviting you to the lunch table.
Right?
Yes.
And so there's been obviously a number of years behind, testing cars for so long. So I'm curious of you guys, of old cars, so go back to the old cars, what do you miss the most? Mike Monticello.
I miss uncluttered engine bays, like in the,
You could see the motor?
You could see the motor and you could actually see through to the road. I miss that. I miss more manual transmissions. I even miss old car exhaust smell. Not that I want to pollute, but there is something about smelling an old car. And it's funny, when I started out in this industry, I was all about the latest and greatest, Evos, STIs, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, whatever, 350Zs, whatever's going to be fast. And as I've gotten older, I hate to admit that I'm getting a little older, I appreciate older cars so much for their simplicity. And actually, my favorite automotive author is Peter Egan. Any Peter Egan fans out there?
Yeah.
Yay, okay, one person. So Peter Egan's really special because he's a really great storyteller and self-deprecating, and he writes both motorcycle and car columns. And I'm reading like a compilation of old columns that he wrote. And one of them from 1997 was about why 5 motorcycles is the right number of motorcycles. But that's not really the point. The point is, one of them was what he called an old crock. And you need an old crock, you need an old motorcycle. And I wanted to read this because I actually was just reading this last night, and this is what he said, which is why it pertains to cars too, for why I like old cars and why I think it's good to still have an old car. He said, "It has to be a bike from your lost youth or from an era in which you wished you lived, symbolic of something important to you, or just beautiful in itself." And this is the part that I love. He said, "It should remind you simultaneously of how far we've come and how much we've lost." And I think, because we've lost a lot with cars being so much technological these days. They're not as visceral as they used to be. They're a heck of a lot safer, but there is something very special about an old car.
So I can see Gabe's like, you're right. Gabe, did you want to elaborate?
Yeah, not only visceral, but I personally miss the feel you got from steering, the feedback, and letting you know exactly what kind of pavement you're on, the level of grip, and manual shifting. Not only because of the manual shifting, but when you get it right, when you're so much. In not only in control, but you're so in touch with the environment, with the terrain.
Right.
You look at
no choice.
exactly.
And
You look at a hill. You kind of like know internally, do I have enough power for that hill? You downshift ahead of time, and when you get the whole thing like right and it's so synchronized, it's such a nice, gratifying feeling.
Yeah. I think we're all going to say manual transmission is what we miss.
Yeah, let's all kind of agree on that.
Yeah,
for different reasons.
But the simplicity in general. I don't know. I view a car as it's a machine. And I'm the driver. I'm in charge of this thing, and I got to drive it down the road, get all this other clutter out of the way. Like just the simplicity. I miss that.
I was going to say analog.
Yes.
I miss a lot of analog controls.
Yeah, and they are safer. They're just way safer. So you got to appreciate that. But
I miss some knobs and dials, things you can do in the car with just by feel without looking at some screen and aiming your finger exactly at the right point.
Right, and it's funny, you guys talked about performance, the things you mentioned, and I got to see some of their answers, so I had privy to kind of what some of them were going to say. But carburetors and all that stuff that you actually said you were glad were gone were the same things that you said, I kind of liked that, tinkering with those same exact things. And, I think I've said we have a 67 Mustang. That car's hard to drive.
Yeah.
I'm laying on the clutch and the
manual
throws are
brakes,
this big,
manual
and
steering.
like you said, Mike, there's no handling going otherwhere.
It's
but
the
straight.
sweet spot, I mean,
Yes.
you go too far, and cars were hard to drive.
Right.
Then there was this beautiful sweet spot where it was easy to drive but engaging.
Right.
Now we're trying to make the car so easy and idiot-proof and all these things that there's nothing for us to do, and people are picking up their phones and doing something else.
It's
because
making
it's
us
so
worse drivers.
boring.
It's making us
So
worse
it's like
drivers,
in the interest of making it easier, in some ways you're making it less safe.
Well, it gets
and
to
I
what
think
we've lost.
it's just that engagement and actually doing something and being alert. I think we all miss that, yeah.
Yeah. So we're in the present, to your point. We're in this spot of balancing performance and safety and engagement. Ryan, I'll go to Ryan first. If you could pick a car on the market today, what would be your favorite
geez.
one?
it's expensive.
It's one of the hazards of this profession.
Right? No, I'm a Porsche 911 guy for sure. But that's a little unrealistic. I'll take
Porsche.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh my God.
I've been hammered for that. No, honestly, the BMW M235i we tested, a couple years back now. That's a fantastic car. A realistic car that I would buy.
Anybody concur? Any different thoughts?
It was a manual.
Well, but people ask us this all the time. What's your favorite car? And I say, I'll have one answer now. I'll have a different answer in an hour.
I have an answer right
because
now.
there's so many.
You don't have an answer right now?
I've got too many. I mean,
Mine is Porsche 911 GT3.
Another
Because
inexpensive.
we're talking 500 horsepower, flat six, naturally aspirated, just sounds fantastic. The shifter is, the 6-speed manual is absolutely amazing because it's not super light. It's actually really firm and positive. But I said GT3, not GT3 RS. Do you know why I said GT3 and not GT3 RS? Anybody?
It's a quiz.
I
What?
didn't know there was going to be a test.
Because the GT3 RS you can't get with a manual transmission. It's only the paddle shift. So it's got to be the GT3.
I think I'm just happy that there are manufacturers that make cars like that. I like the fact that
we
there's
can't
that's
afford.
but even dial it back. I mean,
Right.
you can get a really decent rear-wheel drive Mustang GT with a manual transmission. I'm glad they make that car. I'm glad they still make the Corvette. I'm glad they make the Porsche Cayman with the manuals, because there's a lot of car manufacturers could say, these cars are silly, they don't make as much money as trucks, let's just get rid of all these kind of fun to drive cars. So there are manufacturers committed to this, and I think to answer your question, that's my favorite car, the fact that these even exist.
Can I counterpoint here? I'm a fan of anyone else's 911, but it's like you guys have a lot more self-control, I think, than myself, because to drive that on the street and have fun, I mean, if you're driving anywhere near the speed limit,
right?
You're kind of like, it's barely idling, So it's like I don't know.
You have to be on the right mountain road. You have to be on a canyon road. With
you have to be
around.
in Germany with the Autobahn, but it's like it's amazing, the performance of these vehicles. I mean, I still think it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Right.
And those cars, you're always driving slow unless you're like on the Autobahn.
Well, you'll laugh because apparently they have more self-restraint and a lot more money, apparently, that they're hiding under their mask. But
Not everybody has a track in their backyard like we do.
Like we do.
But
I wrote down the Kia Sorento because I was like, that's my
Oh
favorite
my gosh.
right now. So,
Always miss practicality.
See? Always miss practicality. So you're all crazy, Kia Sorento. So what makes them so much better? What is in current cars that strikes that balance? What are the items? Ryan, any specifics?
Well, cars they ride a lot better than they used to. They're quieter. It's the safety stuff.
I'm going to argue with the ride better thing.
Okay. You don't agree?
There was a sweet spot. They rode better, and now they're...
Yeah, they're coming back down.
Yeah, now it's fashionable to have like low-profile tires
have to
on
have
everything.
45
and
series tires
exactly,
on, like,
because it
your
looks
family
good, it's
sedan.
fashionable, but it ruins the ride comfort.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your point, I mean, cars are definitely cleaner nowadays and much more fuel efficient and safer. I mean, the strides we made in terms of crashworthiness and also active safety. I mean, the advent of stability control. I mean, that was stability control. When we saw that 20 years ago in our avoidance maneuver,
We were
what
there.
it does,
We were there.
We were there.
driving
We were
it,
there.
and it was like,
We said,
oh
"Wow, my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread, right?"
Yeah, I think it was like a big hand that goes and picks up your car and puts it back on the road where you want it to go.
If you drive an old car without anti-lock brakes. I mean, that's an eye-opener.
Yeah, it's all of those systems. It's anti-lock brakes, traction control, electronic stability control, automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning. Those are the things that really make the modern cars so much better than the old cars.
And what's amazing, I mean, as an engineer, I mean, it's amazing what has been accomplished.
Oh,
and
yeah.
what's funny about it is like every time there's like a new safety standard or new emission standards, that's the end. All the cars are going to cost $1 million, and all the cars are going to, go really
There's
slow now.
hesitancy, right?
I mean, it was back in the '70s with the Cadillac converter. Oh, that's the end. And then other standards. Oh, that's the end, and it hasn't been.
When the manufacturers say we can't do that,
But
we
it's
can't
like, look,
do that,
we
and
have
then they do it.
We have street legal vehicles that go like 270 miles an hour now.
Right.
And make emissions, in safety. It's amazing.
Not to mention child safety, which is your domain,
Right,
Jen.
right.
I mean, those days of putting eight people in
the way
a
back,
sedan
like
or
I
in
used to,
four kids in the station wagon without seatbelts. I mean, the child restraint systems and whatnot, seatbelts. I mean, all these things are a blessing.
Yeah, people will say to me a lot with the child safety stuff, we lived. I'm like, well, many didn't, because those numbers have come very down. You got lucky with the way back.
That is
and
bringing back
everything.
memories, though, of us having 3 kids in the back part of our
Yes,
Volvo 145 wagon. The car. There's 5 people in the car plus 3 more kids in the back compartment area
Right.
with our backs against the back.
Oh yeah, doing peace signs out the window, literally. Yeah, and it's so funny when you guys talk about safety. What I hear, and I'm sure we've talked to you guys about, is this idea of non-intrusive safety. It has your back. It's behind the scenes. If something slips or gets messed up, it's there, but it doesn't interfere with your driving. And I think that's where both, in our surveys and stuff, that's the ones that people like.
Those are the
They're
ones.
kind of the behind the scenes. The stuff that's starting to take control of the wheel, the jury's still out. Not only with people not loving it, but is it proving to be a safety benefit? So stay tuned as that stuff comes more and more. We're always on the ones that we wait for the data to say this is proving to be beneficial before we apply it to points, et cetera, and stuff like that. So really interesting. With the driving and our cool jobs, Gabe saying, we're spoiled. Is there something in particular that really excites you about what we're doing, our work, be it, it's probably child seats for all of you, but no, I'm kidding. Totally
Child
kidding.
seats
But
are amazing.
Is there something that's exciting?
It's
for
just
you
what you're
today?
talking about, right? So, I mean, there are some systems that help you.
Right.
Right? They're completely not there, but when you really need it, it's there. Then there's these systems that are just intrusive. It's jerking the wheel from you when you actually want to go and give, the cyclists some room. And right now, we're at a big game changer right now. Everyone's talking about self-driving cars, and we're seeing some of these autonomous technologies and the automation that's just kind of haphazardly going on all these vehicles. And what's kind of exciting about where we are very uniquely is we have an opportunity to help shape that market with our ratings, with our scoring systems. And I think that's really exciting because it could go really good, it could go really bad. And we've seen kind of some history.
Give and take, right?
We're seeing both of that happen at the same time. So I think it's just where we're at, it's almost more important than ever that we help shape that industry and kind of say, do more of this stuff and less of that stuff. And there's some really good opportunities there.
People sometimes ask, and we let Gabe go, but some people say, why are you buying these inordinately expensive cars sometimes, and you guys are members, it's your money, it's your organization. because those are the ones that are introducing this stuff at times. You know, it's starting out in a really high-end car. And people are like, why are you buying that? Because we need to have that exposure. We want that early view of, is this even helpful, or is it going to be, you know, a detriment? So that's some of the reason. Gabe, you were going to say something.
Yeah, from my perspective of being here for 26 years, we're certainly in a different place now. You know, when I came in, we were kind of content doing our 40 cars a year testing, and now, I mean, not only we've grown the place, and I'm not talking about just the physical facility stuff, but the kind of people we've brought in, and the kind of influence, and the level that automakers pay attention to what we say, and us being part of a conversation, like Jake said, shaping certain decisions, you know, in terms of autonomous, in terms of electrification, everything that's out there. We're set up in a way that we're in a position to really be out there in the forefront of all of these technologies, and in a position to empower consumers that come to us for advice.
Right. Ryan, anything that's particularly exciting?
Jake brings up the point that we have the opportunity to shape the future in a way, and it sounds maybe a
With
little
your
cocky to
help.
say that, but people they listen to us,
Yep.
and that's super important. So
And it's about collaboration. When we would deliver maybe bad news, you know, your cars have poor reliability, or they didn't score well in our testing, or whatever, it was often in the past they blamed us,
Right.
you know, or they said, well, your Consumer Reports members don't know anything, and now they're approaching it differently. We're having meetings with them, and they're saying, yeah, okay, we can understand where you came up with that, and yeah, some of our data shows the same thing, and perhaps Consumer Reports and the manufacturers are all after the same thing. You know, we all want good products.
Yep.
yeah, that's a good point. We see that with tires too. It used to be there was times when they would be upset with us, and now it's a different meeting. They
We're not
want
the
to know.
bad-
They
we're not
want to
the
know.
bad guys anymore.
Right. They want to learn, and we learn from them. So it's really great.
Yeah, and I think the excitement comes as the technology changes. You know, you go back, we didn't have a headlight test or anything like that, but HIDs, LEDs, they forced us to do something new. We're doing so much at the track right now in terms of keeping the track up so we can do, you know, autonomous evaluation on loop.
Yep.
And that gets right down to how the lines are striped on the asphalt. Will they be able to pick them up? We're working with, you know, the DOT offices and universities. It's
Yep.
very exciting. So as the cars keep changing, for us to keep up with them, it's really, really cool. And this idea of no compromise, that's where I feel we're at, is that this balance of performance, safety, and driving, truly, to keep up with it all. What are you most anxious about as we draw to it? Mike Monticello, you're awfully quiet down there.
So I'm a little anxious that, you know, cars in the future are gonna be more boring to drive, and you know, a lot of us, I hope most of you out there, still really like driving. I know we all do. We like driving for the sake of driving, you know. And we've seen cars become a little less exciting to drive over the years, and I would hate to see that go away. At least for those, maybe it's a smaller majority, a group of people, but they still want cars that are fun to drive, and I don't want that to go away, no matter what happens with autonomous cars or technology. I'd like that to still stay with at least some cars.
Right. And go ahead, Ryan.
The thought of that makes me anxious. I can't imagine sitting in a car while it drives me down the road. I just can't. Like
You don't even like sitting in the passenger seat when someone
with certain people driving. Yeah, sometimes.
Well, isn't the irony of it, right? I mean, that's the promise. You know, it's like, oh, you know, instead of driving, I could just sit in the passenger seat. And I'm like, I like to drive.
Right. Exactly.
Well, it's what Mike
scares
says.
me.
Like, people aren't valuing driving, and for me, it's like I'm anxious when people can feel that, you know, working on their phones while they're driving kind of becomes the norm. It becomes accepted. It becomes
That's an epidemic.
you know,
It's already done.
which is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I'm anxious about is all of the market pressures right now of the push for self-driving cars. I mean, every company is under intense pressure, like, oh, they have to be first, they have to go. And the problem is that they start just throwing out this technology when it's unproven. That makes me anxious because people are going to get hurt. And it's going to slow down advancements because this type of advancements, we don't know what it's going to look like. It's not necessarily going to be self-driving cars. Maybe it'll be this amazing assist where the car works with you and helps you when you need it. But all that stuff's going to get slowed down because every time somebody gets hurt in technology that's not ripe, people are going to be like, I don't know if I even like this automatic emergency braking thing. I'm going to turn that off too.
There's a
because
high
it's-
risk there.
Right. Everyone kind of gets
Yes.
the same
Well,
thing.
the concept behind it is that self-driving is a really good thing for society because it enables people to have more mobility, and at least in theory, if a machine makes decisions, it sometimes eliminates some human error that causes crashes. But the way to get there is really tricky, and not having some uniform way and some standards to get there is really anxiety producing, and I think it creates a certain expectation. I mean, there's a certain hype and a bubble out there that, hey, autonomous cars are right around the corner, and my next car is going to be autonomous. And you know what? I hate to break it to you, but it's not happening so fast. Not tomorrow, not next year, not probably in the next 5 years or even 10 years. And that whole idea of overly relying on these technologies and false sense of confidence is a little disconcerting.
And I think it's important, we as CR are not against the societal benefits and the safety benefits of self-driving vehicles. We see there's potential there,
If it
maybe
works.
not on the scale, if it
If it
works,
works,
and
yeah.
not on the scale. And you hear people talk about these revolutions, the 3 revolutions in transportation. Electric, which I think we're certainly there on the forefront there, the autonomous, we are there, and then the shared, the Uber and the Lyfts of the world, that's changing the way people move about. And our pledge to you is that we will be there as these cars come. We hope that you pledge your support in Talking Cars or membership, even donations, if that's the way you want to support our work. We are nonprofit and we keep going. So Mike Quincy had a great quote in his questions, and I want to kind of close with that on the formal part. Mike, what did you say?
A lot of times people talk about the golden age of automobiles. Maybe it's the 1950s or the 1960s or whenever. And honestly, I think right now is the golden age of automobiles because they've never been better.
So I don't think Mike could have said it any better. So with that, we'll let you stop listening to us talk and we'll take your audience questions. Who's got the first question?
Hi, thank you guys. My name is Jorik. I'm here from Brooklyn. I drive a manual. Save the manual. GTI. Question for you guys. You talked about how your testing evolves. My question revolves around autonomous emergency braking. Apart from nomenclature, that's different with every manufacturer. When you look at the Institute of Highway Safety, they benchmark it. Like, does it avoid a collision or does it just mitigate a collision? Is there any plans within Consumer Reports to do apples-to-apples testing on when a car comes out and when a new car comes out, whether that's like the same from an autonomous and emergency braking perspective?
Yeah, that's probably a good Jake question.
That's a good Jay question, sure. Yeah, we're looking at it different ways. And actually, IHS, they do a pretty good job in terms of like systematically doing some testing, but they only test up to about 25 miles per hour, which is kind of interesting. So we're very interested in some of the other pieces of that. So when they looked at automatic emergency braking, it's like that's the one metric. We've been a big proponent of pedestrian detection, especially somewhere like here in Brooklyn, whether or not it's 25 or not, if it doesn't see a person, that's a problem. Also higher speed stuff. So we're definitely giving points of all those capabilities, but we are considering different tests too, and we've been looking at different things. I mean, this goes to what Jen was talking about in terms of upgrading our track, getting the lines, getting some simulations. We have some budget items that we're working right now that may look a little bit like people. And we do have some props that look a little bit like cars. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and another thing you touched on is talking about the IHS. One of the great ways, and Mike, you said it too, about collaboration. If there's an organization like Consumer Reports or IHS that is doing that part of it, let them do that part of it. We don't need to duplicate it, but maybe attack it from a different way. So like Jake says, the higher speed automatic emergency braking as opposed to exactly what the IHS
And now they're
is
getting
doing.
into pedestrian detection.
Right.
So yes, exactly. We're trying to kind of push forward, but if they're doing something good, we'll try to add to that as opposed to
Bring something unique to the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Hello guys, my name is Austin. I'm from Oceanside, New York, Long Island. I just wanted to bring up the fact that over the past 5 or 6 years, there's been a huge change in terms of the amount of the complex safety standard systems that are in cars, as well as infotainment technology, and just features overall. So, 5 years ago in 2012, 2013, when I'm looking for a used car, the biggest thing I might be missing is traction control. Now, if I go to look for a 5 or 6 year old used car, I'm missing rear camera, AEM, rear cross traffic alert, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, as well as some, blind spot monitoring, all those things as standard. So I'm basically buying an iPhone 5. Right. So what I'm saying is,
great analogy.
What I'm saying is now I feel like it's pushing people towards leasing as opposed to buying a used car. And then the actual question is, do you think this is going to affect the depreciation curve or how people value used cars, considering the average age of a car in America on the road is around 9 to 10 years? So that's about half the cars on the road today, right now outside, don't have these standard safety features. Thank you.
Well, I think this audience is a bit more informed than most. So I think to answer your question, I think you'd have to ask what are the priorities of car buyers, and is it safety, is it fuel economy, or is it price? So if price is leading everything, they might not, a used car buyer might not consider, am I getting all the safety? Well, what can I get for five grand? It's like, what can I get for my money? So I guess it depends on what kind of priorities.
I think, unfortunately, not everyone watches the show.
Well, right.
I mean, it's a great question. And I like the way you
But
posed it.
you know more than most people.
But the truth is that to a lot of people, when they're looking at that car, does it come with the alloy wheels? Does it come with the wing? Does it come with leather or a sunroof? Still, to the market, that is so. So I don't necessarily think that it's going to really hurt the used car cost and sales because of that. I think as education increases and people really understand how important these things are, maybe, but unfortunately we're not there yet. Unfortunately, it's kind of triple negative,
Also,
I guess.
a brand new car is extremely expensive. So used cars are still hot. I mean, and some people will do without that technology. Just to
And I think
be
by
able
the
to drive,
time, by the time I think we get there, again, it's like there's a sweet spot of the 3-year-old used car. Whether it's certified or even not, a lot of life left into it, and I think we're even getting to the point where some of the 3-year-old cars do have those types of safety.
But it kind of brings up when we talk about, we always give out advice on the best car to get for a teen driver.
Right, and we've had this discussions with some of the audience today.
So it comes down to, get the most safety for your money. But again, it keeps coming back to money.
Speaking of the technology, and more specifically when it gets to electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids, the range keeps getting longer, charge times keep getting shorter, so that technology is moving. And so leasing is really a good idea when you talk about these kind of cars, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where, hey, I just bought this electric vehicles with a range of 100 miles, and now for much less money, I could have had a car that can do 300 miles of range. So that's something to keep in mind.
And it's the same reason we applaud the early adopters from the manufacturer side who put it in sooner and put it in on every trim, not just the top of the line trim. So to help that along, to your point.
Toyota will have some good resale value if that happens.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, my name is Alan. I'm from right here in Brooklyn. I just came out of a Nissan Maxima into Lexus, and I know you guys from the show. The infotainment system is really finicky, and I totally agree with you guys. I totally agree. But one thing that attracted me to the car is that I love the talk-to-car technology. Press the button, and my Nissan I always had to repeat 3 or 4 times. The Lexus,
it's like having children,
Right. So I don't even touch the keypad sometimes. I just talk to it. So I guess my question is, where do you see cars with that speech technology, and what's the best? What has been the best manufacturer with that speech and with regard to speech technology, in your opinion? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, voice control is not a new thing in cars, but it gets evolved.
Good voice
Control can recognize natural speak instead of just like predetermined phrases that you'll never get right, and that just adds frustration. But it can go overboard. For instance, in the BMW that I just drove the other day, I can't even have a natural conversation. Every time you mention BMW, she comes in and says, "What can I help you with?" Be careful what you wish for.
Or you talk with your hands and it turns the radio
it turns the
up.
volume up.
Well, we just came from the New York Auto Show, and half of Mercedes-Benz press conference was talking about their latest voice commands. So I think they're certainly getting better. And I think maybe it's a way of manufacturers of saying, we've got really terrible controls, so we need to give people an out.
I mean, we've done surveys of people, and you're the 1%, because I mean, there's a lot of people don't like to use the voice controls. I mean, and there's various reasons. You have a car full of people, and I know whenever I start talking to the car, like my kid in the back says something, and he's like, what are you talking about? And it misunderstands. But I mean, they are certainly getting better, especially in some automakers. But honestly, the best one is if you're connected with CarPlay or Android Auto, because no matter how good the cars are going to get, they're not going to match the pace of the smartphones because they're constantly updating. They're also using the cloud really, just very smoothly. So
And
I think a lot of people are going to use
talking
those.
to
And they're used
Siri.
to, right? You've already programmed it to know who your
yeah.
wife or your kid is
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, I mean, for those of you that haven't used it, when you do, it will completely change your driving life for sure.
It was one of the big things. We talked about cars for teens, and I've told this story about leasing for my teenage daughter because you can text through it. She can text through the voice commands, and I know she's doing that. So that was the safety benefit there as well.
Hi, I'm Will from Jersey. My question, let me just start by saying I'm impressed with your history of advocacy and achieving change in the industry. And what you do is you reward manufacturers for doing things that you think are good. But I was wondering whether you ever penalize them for doing things that are bad. For example, the emissions cheating.
There have been some examples, Jake.
Yeah, there have definitely been certain penalties we've done, and we're currently doing certain things, like for instance, these complicated shifters. A lot of these shifters that are monostable or a push button, if they don't have an algorithm that basically locks it out and puts it in park or stops you from rolling out, if you perhaps didn't hit the right button, we're taking points off from that. And we're certainly penalizing things like reliability really harshly. There's a lot of bad practices from a lot of companies. And it is interesting. I would love to hear more from, members and anyone who, should we say, hey, you did something bad over here, don't buy that thing over there. It's an interesting concept.
And I think it's an interesting concept inside Consumer Reports beyond cars. Awarding manufacturers that have good labor practices, good sustainability practices in terms of environment, that type of thing. So stay tuned on that, I think.
I mean, you look at like Subaru, for instance. I mean, they have zero landfill plants.
Right.
And they make a big deal about that. So there's certain things about certain automakers, and I think at a minimum, what's imperative is just we lay all that stuff out. I mean, honestly, when it comes to the cars, you're not all buying the top picks. You're not all buying the top-rated cars. We get that. I think it's our job just to kind of lay it all out very clearly, what this automaker did, what it didn't do, et cetera.
And Consumer Reports is in a unique position of laying out these kind of things and also putting some teeth into some of the things that help us keep the manufacturer's feet to the fire. So because we're not beholden to anybody other than you, our members, and there's no advertising, we're a nonprofit, and that allows us to do that.
And I think your generation that you care more about the whole big picture of the organization or the company in terms of all of those aspects than perhaps we did when we were, younger, or our generation, not quite as much. So we hear you, and it's a good question.
Hi, I'm Ethan from Greenwich. I have a question regarding just the SUV category in general. You'll see in Europe the CR-V is offered with a hybrid, and I wanted to know why you all think that Honda doesn't offer that in the US, especially considering Toyota and some other manufacturers do.
Any takers?
Price of gasoline.
Yeah, I mean, cheap gas in the US has been the Achilles heel of getting more electrification. But And there's no one is saying that Honda is not planning on bringing the ST-RV hybrid to the U.S. market. Toyota, on the other hand, has made it a strategic decision to eventually have every single model in its lineup with the hybrid powertrain. So, Honda and Toyota being such rivals, stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, so Toyota, is very committed to this technology and kind of putting it everywhere. But the other thing, what they're doing is they're really cutting down that additional price. And I think that's what's critical because dollars and cents, it doesn't make sense to spend an extra $4,000 to get better fuel efficiency when gasoline's $2.50 or whatever it is. But the latest Toyotas we're seeing, the upcoming Highlander and the Avalon and the Camry, it's not much more at all to get the hybrid, and you get a whole lot better fuel efficiency. And certainly for people who care about the environment and all that stuff, you're going to get that anyway.
And you can blame the advancement of in regular combustion engines. For instance, the Honda CR-V you just mentioned, it gets 28 miles to the gallon. So we're talking about the differential. So if the hybrid is not going to get something like at least 32 miles per gallon, that's not enough of a difference to justify the price difference. Yeah. If the hybrid will get 45 miles per gallon, which is highly unlikely, that might be a reason to buy it.
Hi, Comran from Brooklyn. I have a question regarding the climate controls. I see in Volvos that have everything in a touch screen. I see in Subarus that have a bigger screen. I'm afraid they're also gonna put it there, and it's not responsive. And I'm had it in Volvo when it's just glitches out and you can't really change it. I just want to know your take on it. I like push buttons, something I can push, twist around and shut it down if I need to.
We feel your pain.
Yeah, that's why we've been such big fans of the simpler systems, like from Kia and Hyundai are probably most famous for continuing to put out relatively simple, straightforward systems. Just talking about, say, our Lexus LS that we had, I think is maybe the best example of a car.
Or the worst.
What's that worst example of the best example of getting in a car. And it's so convoluted how you have to use this pad to get this icon to land where you want it to land while you're driving that, I get in it and once I start driving, I just drive, which is actually a good thing anyway. But the controls shouldn't be so bad that you can't change something if you need to change it.
It would have been nice to have seat heaters. To be able to operate them, but it's very dangerous to operate the seat heaters.
When you have to go through various menus to get something simple, that's too much. And I think some of your fears about Subaru might unfortunately be coming true. We saw the big screen in the redesigned Outback. It's optional. It's not a standard, but the big screen in the new Outback, you have to go into a climate menu to get all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
but some of them are getting better. So they're more responsive, things like having the climate control stay there so you don't have to chase it around different screens. That's better. And then also what Audi is doing where there's feedback. You press the screen, but you can feel it click. So they are improving, but we feel your pain.
And the bottom line is, I think a big reason why they're doing this is because it looks good to you guys in the showroom. They want to impress you. When you have this gigantic screen going all the way across, and minimal buttons, it looks impressive.
I think it impressed people in the boardroom. Where the auto companies are laying it all out. We can do this, we can do that.
Get into the Mercedes GLS. It's an impressive looking, display that they have. But if it's complicated and confusing, then it doesn't really do the buyer any good once they're owning the car.
Especially if it's something you use all the time.
Exactly.
Like the climate. That's all the time.
One of the things we've said is, and we've certainly said it on the show, I think, is part of the test drive now, you don't need to move the car. You should actually be spending some time with all of that, sitting in the dealer's lot. Tell them to go away for a while and say, I just need to sit here. It's not really done. You take your test drive and you say, the performance, the driving is great. But then when you get to these day-to-day operations, that you just want to move the vent or turn the seat heater on.
Or when we buy a new test car and the salesperson offers to go over the car, it's like, this only take 45 minutes. I was like, why is the car that complicated that you have to explain us how to use it?
But take the time, because that's the livability stuff when we talk about livability, to stay with those controls. Because again, you can't even single out a single manufacturer because they're all doing it.
Hi, I'm Chris from Westbury. You guys are awesome. You rock. I love it.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Good night.
We're out of here.
Best question ever.
I hope it's not too much of a strange question, but about 3 years ago, I bought my first luxury car. And one of the reasons I bought it is because of all these comfort features. You get in the car, it fits well, it's sturdy, it makes you feel comfortable and safe. And the question I had is something I've been searching for, and there's a lot of the things you talk about are available on your website, available from other people commenting about vehicles and cars and options and how well they work, who does the best one, who does the worst, and all these things, these metrics are measurable in some degree. One of the things I've been having trouble finding is who makes the best cooled seats. And I know it sounds funny and strange, but there are cool seats and they're ventilated seats.
Yeah, they're different.
And most manufacturers talk about them interchangeably, and a lot of people don't know that there's a difference between the two. And I didn't know until I rented a car and said, wow, these seats work really well. Some are better than others. Are one of you a seat specialist?
Okay, well, I will take this because it's a great suggestion. I kind of run hot, so I will become the new seat cooler tester. Okay, I'm taking it upon myself.
Proud of you, buddy.
Every car I will now test.
Your first job was doing air conditioning stuff.
Maybe.
One of the things I do is climate controls.
Write this down. This is good.
I think that's a good point because internally we've had discussions when I've written that the seats are cooled or the seats are vented, and one of our more astute male persons will say, no, that's wrong. And so, but that's
there's
a good point.
definite differences, and you're right. And I think,
but also one of the best inventions ever in a car is.
I completely agree. I think to make that invention better would be to measure the best seats and also have an app on your phone so you can turn it on before you get there when the car is really hot. So from a distance,
you can do that with some cars now.
Some cars do it, but I think it could be better.
They're all going that way. They will get
Chris,
better.
this is exactly the feedback of some piece that we're not doing.
Sure.
But maybe we should do.
Great suggestion.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike from East Lyme, Connecticut. Original fan. I was actually a caller on the first episode of That Was
Mike.
So Disastrous. Part of the reason I became a subscriber is as an engineer, a test engineer myself, took me quite a while to really start to appreciate all of what you guys do to both push the envelope in your own testing beyond what the government requires for a lot of stuff, or especially child seats. That's when I first started becoming a subscriber, when we first started having kids. But to touch upon what some other people have brought up with advanced technology and the pace at which it changes, both helpful for the cars, the AEB and the stability control, as well as the distractive. Where do you see the role of the government, at least in driver's ed training, in those sorts of things? I think back to my woeful days of driver's ed, and we actually spent some of my driver's ed time watching License to Drive, the movie. And if it wasn't for my own personal passions to follow along, to subscribe, to pay attention, I don't know that most people do that, and I don't know where that burden lies.
Jen.
Obviously, so we've talked about, so a couple thoughts, and one is on, teen licensing and new drivers is we continue our data, and all the work we do is continuously feeding our advocacy sites in Washington, D.C., Austin, Texas, and San Francisco. So we are continuing, and our data, we've had, like the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration say, we wait for you because we know it's going to be a data-driven commentary. Things are a little slow in the regulation areas right now, so we hope that they'll speed up and address some of these issues. I think in terms of young drivers and experience, and I agree with you, having a teen driver that just went through it, pretty woeful in terms of the driver's education. So I think the graduated licensing, I know we have it in Connecticut, I think you guys have it in New York, where they have to wait a bit before they can take friends, and it's a while till siblings and then another while till friends. Is one of the best things we have done in certain state laws, because it gets them some driving experience before they're endangering their passengers. Teen deaths are a huge issue, and it's usually teen drivers and teen friends that are those masses.
But I think there's the other point of it is just driving skill.
Right.
I mean, that's not something that's but it's not something that's taught. And so one of the things that we do at the track is twice a year we open up our track and we actually do a teen driving school. And we get these kids driving and be able to slam on the brakes the whole way and engage ABS, or go around a corner and see how the stability control works, or doesn't if their car doesn't have it. And those opportunities to actually feel. It's truly amazing what a difference it can make if you really know how to use your car. I mean, you could have driver A in a Ferrari and driver B in a Camry, and if driver B in the Camry is going to slam on the brakes really hard and engage the ABS, they're going to stop better than the Ferrari. I mean, it's very eye-opening. So, I mean, and then take that to the snow. It's just like, it doesn't matter what you're driving. If you know how to operate the vehicle, it makes an enormous difference. So I think for, any parent, to look at some kind of defensive driving opportunity for their kid, it's not mandatory, but boy, just do it.
But the biggest problem is, driver's ed is obviously super important, and they're raising the ages and everything for the kids. But the most important thing is how the parents drive, because kids, while they don't emulate their parents in a lot of ways, they will drive the way their parents drive. And if their parents are terrible drivers, which driving out on the road, that there's a lot of terrible drivers out there, those kids are going to drive the exact same terrible way. So as a parent, they need to show their kids, this is what you do. You always put your turn signal on. You always look before you change lanes. You never text and drive. Those are the things that people really need to be focused on. And you know what? That's parents, I don't want to say this, but in a sense, not caring enough about their kids' safety when they show them bad habits themselves.
Right. And the woeful state of teen driving schools is alive and well, because my wife and I have a son who recently got his license, and one of the classes that he took, they put in a VCR tape from the first Bush presidency. So they're not upgrading their systems at all. So. But he also took the teen driving class at the track.
The teen driving, I don't have any kids, but the teen driving, cool.
Yes.
I've been an instructor. Watch them light up. Like, a car can do this. Like, they don't even know. Most people have never even felt ABS. They've never felt stability control, and maybe because they didn't have a car with it. But they don't know the limits of a car, much higher than you would ever experience on the road. Hopefully, when you're just driving around.
Yeah,
but No, good.
Every kid I've coached at this teen driving school, and they're all over the country, by the way. We do it twice a year.
Feel free to look it up. It's called Street Survival.
Yeah. So every kid that I've coached, one of the first tests we do is this braking test, and it's a full ABS. Hit the brakes as hard as you can.
You have to yell at them.
I've never had a kid the first try hit the brake as hard as they could. Because they've never done it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm allowed to do that? Yeah, we want you to hit that brake as hard as you can."
The grinding noise is a good noise that's working.
They started the day going, "Oh God, my parents made me come here." Yeah, and at the end of the day, they're like, "Can we do more laps?"
Yeah. So I appreciate that. They get excited about it, because I don't know. I feel like kids nowadays aren't that excited.
And the reason we want all the safety features, that balance of buy as much safety as you can afford, new or used, for young drivers too. So from all of us on Talking Cars, we can't thank you enough for being here to celebrate our 200th episode, and as well as all of those of you listening and watching. We really appreciate it. We will keep doing what we're doing. As you know, we are a nonprofit, so any support you can give, keep subscribing, keep donating, consumerreports.org. We love doing what we do. We'd love to keep on doing it. And we'll see you next time.